few observations from training camp on August 10th, 2021 at Paul Brown Stadium for the Cincinnati Bengals. You're in the trenches with Dave Lapham, brought to you by First Star Logistics. And I'll tell you what, Larry Ogunjobi was cleared to practice. That hamstring is healed up. He passed his physical, and he was out there today, and he was a force in the interior pass rush. Now he had fresh legs. He hadn't been working out and practicing at all with the team for first week and a half because of the hamstring injury. But man, if he continues to perform like that as an interior pass rusher, that's a big plus for the Cincinnati Bengals on the defensive side of the football. Unfortunately, the protection on the reverse side has to firm up, not just Ogunjobi, but in general, defensive linemen and the interior defensive tackles were getting a great push in the pocket against the Bengals offensive line. And that has to firm up. The interior pocket has to be much more solid than that. Way too much push allowed. And Joe Burrow last week, gave his proclamation during a press conference that he's having trouble with bodies around him. He's having a little bit of a mental block. So at that point, the offensive line has to step up and say, you know what, we gotta help him out here. We can't make it more difficult for him. So it's going to be very interesting to me to see who starts at guard in the opener against the Minnesota Vikings. The first piece of that will take place when they play the Tampa Bay Buccaneers on Saturday night, and we do know who's going to get the start on that particular occasion. They have sent out the starting lineups, and Michael Jordan will be at the right guard position, and Quentin Spain will be at the left guard position. But that's just to start the football game. There's going to be a lot of rotation going on in there, and it's going to be like musical chairs, I think. Bruce Arians has said that everyone on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers will go at least a quarter, and I guess that includes Tom Brady. Seeing is believing there, but I guess he hasn't been very happy with what's gone on at Tampa Bay's training camp. And honestly, one quarter of an NFL preseason game is maybe a series or two, and I can see quite a few starters for the Cincinnati Bengals doing that very thing. If you go on a 10-play drive, you could very well eat up half the quarter time of possession on that drive alone. So really, I don't think you can have more than two possessions offensively in a quarter anyway if you go for a quarter. So that's about right. Joe Burrow has already been announced as out. Will Joe Mixon go for a series or two? I think if he does, you can control the narrative. Run screens with Joe. Run tosses, run pitches, keep it on the perimeter. Don't run him between the tackles and get him involved in a bunch of bodies, a big pile of bodies between the tackles where injuries can take place, where, you get an ankle rolled up on, you get a knee twisted, very, very awkwardly or whatever the case may be. Get him out on the perimeter and let him explore that perimeter a little bit and get him on smaller people out there, theoretically. If you can pitch the ball and get him on outside backers and cornerbacks and that sort of thing rather than the big behemoths in the inside. So play it smart and get the screen game going with him out there a little bit. And I think in general, work on that screen game. They did a little bit of it today. It gets the ball out of the quarterback's hand quickly. That's one thing to help the offensive line. It's an extension of that outside running game. It makes the defensive lineman chase. You're going to make them have to run and pursue that outside running game, make them run and pursue the screen game. And screens and draws will help slow down the pass rush. So I think there's a big usage opportunity for screens against this football team. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers won the World Championship, and they won it at the very stadium the Bengals are going to be playing at on Saturday night. And this it wasn't just Tom Brady in the offense. This Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense is legit. In fact, they were number one in the National Football League in stopping the run last year. So that's going to be interesting. Will the Bengals be able to get a running game established a little bit and earn the right to throw the football and throw it cleanly? So I'm interested to see how the offensive line plays. Joe Burrow's not going to play in this game, so my interest in how he plays is obviously going to be number one. But when will that occur? If it does occur in the preseason at all, I think it's leaning more and more toward it may occur for a series or two at some point in the preseason. But then right there, 1 and 1A is the offensive line. I mean, how is the offensive line going to perform? I think it's going to be very, very interesting to see who steps up, who gets an opportunity when they get an opportunity to show what they can do in a game. Some guys are gamers. Some guys don't look all that great in practice all week long, and you get them in a competitive environment in the game, and they up their level of play by quite a bit. And you may have some of those with guys that you haven't really worked a whole lot with yet. But from what I've seen so far, got to step up and really solidify the interior of that pocket. Because if those guys are coming off the edge and the quarterback has to step up in the pocket, they're going to have room to operate and do that. And honestly, that's how Joe Burrow got his knee racked in Washington. Michael Jordan got bull rushed right into Joe Burrow's left knee as he was planning to throw the football. So going to have to improve on that. And it all starts on Saturday night. But Ogunjobi, watch out for him. I'm not sure how much he's going to play because he did just come back to practice from a hamstring injury. That's the other thing, I guess, on Saturday night. Quite a few defensive backs are limping around with a little bit of hamstring problems. Hendrickson has a tight groin. So these guys that are having, muscle issues, you don't want to make them worse. So how much do you play them? It's obviously not going to be the temperature is not going to be a problem. You're going to be able to get loose down there in Tampa Bay. There's no question about that. It's going to be warm. You're going to be able to work up a ladder. You're going to be able to stretch out. It's just a question of what does the training staff and doctors think in terms of how much you should work those problematic hamstrings, groins, and not making them any worse. So decisions to be made as the week wears on. I'm sure they'll make sure that they'll make decisions on who's going to play and how long and who's going to sit. It's going to be interesting to me. Trey Hopkins, if that guy goes in for any series, it's going to be an amazing story to me that Trey Hopkins comes back at any point in the preseason to play to get ready for the opener against the Minnesota Vikings after tearing his ACL in January of this year, the second half of the last game of the season. What will they do with Trey Hopkins? He was out there today. He was out there participating and going through a rotation and team drills of practice today, as well as all the individual drills going and sharpening his techniques and the whole 9 yards. He's a heck of a story. We'll see. Preseason game number 1. And the other thing to me that's going to be very interesting, how much, if they only play a series or two in preseason game 1, will that increase in preseason game 2? Preseason game 3 always used to be the dress rehearsal. Guys, starters would play a half, cool down, warm back up, maybe play a series in the third quarter. Will it be that, or maybe even a little bit more, because there's not a fourth preseason game? And instead of having a fourth preseason game that's going to be played by guys that are the bottom half of the roster or the back end of the roster, seeing who's going to make the final spots and who's going to be special teams contributors playing in that preseason game 4, the entire league gets a bye week. And it was collectively bargained. They all get the bye week, and they all get 3 days off, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So everybody is going to be in the same boat there. How will that affect how much playing time you give your veterans, and will the last preseason game still be the dress rehearsal for the regular season opener? It'll be interesting to see how the league handles that as a whole and how the Cincinnati Bengals do individually.
Hi, Dave Lapham here. Have you heard about In the Trenches with Dave Lapham, presented by First Star Logistics? Catch new episodes from the world of sports and broadcasting. Search for In the Trenches with Dave Lapham on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts.